John Lilly once put it this way: there are no limits at all to the human mind whatsoever, except those we impose on ourselves because of our beliefs. And those limits are also beliefs to be transcended. And that's a view that suggests that the possibilities of human transformation are virtually infinite. And we have no way of knowing the outer horizon of what it means to be human.
And really, to understand all this, everything, you have to go very, very deep into a study of history, consciousness, neurophysiology, everything. You have to be the supreme eclectic type of leaning, and you really have to be wanting to know who you are and what everything's about.
And the thing that you'll find when you go to sacred sites, if you're very humble about it, is that you are on a personal journey, and the sacred site will respond to you in a way that is appropriate only to you. The information is always what you are searching for. And it's the intent you give that energy that defines whether it is used for right action or not. And it is inside these sacred spaces that you will be reminded that you are a god, that you are a bright star.
So what you're trying to do is move through the course without ricocheting off walls or creating karma. You're trying to slide through things smoothly. How do you do that? It's called flowing. There's a technique that you can do that will allow you to touch some part of your inner being that has more knowledge than your conscious state does.
What you did today was hard. When you're hurt, hurting others is easy. It takes strength to choose not to. When life has not treated you with kindness, doing the right thing anyway always takes strength. When you can even tell what the right thing is. I love you, Timothy, but I'm not righteous. I can't teach you to be that. Maybe you and I can imagine a version of me that is good and kind and wise. I'll pretend to be her. You can pretend to love me enough to listen. Maybe that's enough for people like us.
I knew some of what her life was before. I didn't care.
She just did what she had to do to survive.
Well, you can't judge someone by what they do to make rent.
Sometimes you can.
You were in that world too, right? She told me some of it.
Did she?
Just that you were born into it. When you got old enough, the Johns didn't want you, so they started you working muscle. But she knew that they would use you up till there was nothing left.
Float to the top or sink to the bottom. Everything in the middle is a churn. She told me that.
She saved you?
No one really saves anyone. She taught me how to save myself.
Worried about what's gonna happen when they board you? Because they will board you.
If that happens, you won't be around to see it. You think I won't space you?
Oh, I'm pretty sure you will. Won't change anything, though.
It'll make me feel better.
I think it's pretty clear you matter more than just me. I have dealt with these Mickey patrols before. I know a few tricks might help get us out of this jam.
I'm not gonna lie to you. Either way this plays out, you're dead. And I'm the one that's gonna bring you the good news. You're a loose end. It's nothing personal.
Just like that, huh?
Like water's wet, the sky's up.
Must be nice. Have life all figured out like that?
That has nothing to do with me. We're just caught up in the churn is all.
I have no idea what you just said.
This boss that I used to work for in Baltimore, he called it the churn, when the rules of the game change.
What game?
The only game. Survival. Where the jungle tears itself down and builds itself into something new. Guys like you and me, we end up dead. Doesn't really mean anything. Or we happen to live through it. Well, that doesn't mean anything either.
If survival is the game, I can help us survive. So you tell your captain.
You're not our captain.
You tell who's ever in charge that I have valuable information. And Christ, I've had to pee for like 2 hours now.
I'll see you soon.
Hey, you epic, welcome. Thank you for finding me and allowing me to be a part of your journey. It's Andre Hodge. And my two variables, infinite potential healing and being the servant of truth that I associate with And I offer truth in an objective way. It's not a vested interest, like I've got some agenda that I want to contort you to seeing me or whatever and all that. It's about offering data for you to basically just contemplate with, process, integrate, and form a new foundation of your journey. And ideally we all come to the same conclusion. And it's a part of what I've offered is all the stuff going on, right? That makes that very complicated and stuff. And one of the founding components of who I am and what I offer and stuff is the infinite potential healing and energy hygiene, sovereignty, and all that sort of stuff, right? Because to me, the edge that we each individually have will be relative to the potentially the volume, but the seriousness and the completeness of that, and the willingness to appreciate that, like I offered in Energy Field Part 1, it was probably one of my biggest releases I've ever done, right? And it's ironic not many people have seen it, but it makes a lot of sense, right? That who are we, right? What are we? What is our potential and stuff? And the reality of being alive on Earth as human now is that so much is not offered to us. And so there's a potential for a setup for failure, and so much going on in our world where this structure, I call it the apparatus, like the multidimensional internet apparatus. It's just an apparatus. And it's just rolling on. And there's a lot of effort to keep us distracted, keep us in fear, put the demands of life, keep raising the bar, so to speak. So, you know, the cost of living, housing, accommodation, food, energy, and all those sort of basics, and that many of us that are a bit older now have taken for granted for the decades that we've been here, but it's always simmering under the surface of the challenge of life, and it's gone a bit parabolic of late. I feel the escalation of that challenge is relevant to the apparatus moves at play, right, around the world, and what doesn't add up and stuff. So I missed my sort of weekend of releasing a video and making one and stuff. We had some interesting weather and that, but I actually took a step back and not push the pedal to the metal. What I'm going to do is just a bit of an update, part 4, not make it too involved and stuff, just offer a few variables, some stuff about me being like a marker point, but also some society stuff and alternate community sort of stuff that I'm just offering relative to a perspective that I have, and just offering it, right? And just some things going on to keep an eye out, and many things. It's just an opportunity for me to have a bit of an outlet. I'm making a new decent release that I normally do with all the clips and stuff. And I'm putting together a lot of clips. I'm going full clip ninja. And I'm not quite ready to do that. I'm just wanting to see all the clips that I can get and stuff, and then maybe talk about them, how I offer them through the videos or at the start and that. And the volume of clips I've got is pretty high volume. So I might have to do a couple relative to what I'm thinking, but it's basically relative to the unknown, or like mystery school sort of stuff, rites of passage. And I love offering all the information, the healing, the mechanics of going on, but I also love to offer like the recalibration stuff and that, but also how you employ all this and how you can engage it and use what's going on in the world as a tool to become better and evolve and discover new aspects of yourself. And I remember when I was writing, like I've done a lot of writing back in 2014 because I felt like I had a lot of comprehension then relative to what was going on with all the nutrition in the body and the heart, the mind, and all that sort of stuff, and the mind and all those sort of things are coming into play big time, especially in uncertainty and all that, because the uncertainty is really simmering, right? Like I said, and emotional mastery is a big thing that I could get into as well more. But I feel, you know, with the future uncertain, the unknown, the vastness of the unknown. So that theme that I've got, the courage to explore the unknown and our potential that waits there, is probably a really good point to reintegrate and give you a marker point to go really within, right? Because ultimately, ideally I've inspired in you, but there's more to you, right? And where is that? How do we achieve that? How do we integrate that? And I think a lot of people have actually been integrating it without awareness, and not in a judgment way, just observing people and stuff. You feel like they're so slow or they're not getting it, and it's so obvious to you. Well, that to me is a big marker point that you've expanded and you see the answers. And you know, if you've done clearing and getting all the gunk out the way, or you see that there's more to do or all that, then at least you're in the very minute percentage that is willing to do that, right? So you might feel off and all that sort of stuff, but just embracing healing as a variable is incredibly brave. It's something that's not appreciated in this world, and it's potentially stigmatized in that. But also, you might be pushing the limits as well, and your presence might be triggering people, and it gets projections going at you. And the thing is, out of all this, if you're solid and you've done the work on yourself and you leave no gaps and all that, and you clear all the gunk out, then the byproduct is that you are stronger and you see through it all, and you're able to hold your line and not people please or accommodate all this stuff, right? And then what is the potential with that foundation and chipping away and all those sort of things? So I've got these images I've offered and that, but this update is an opportunity for me to just get a few things across and stuff. And I've noticed some different newer energy issues, and with all that uncertainty of the world and that, there's a potential to be puppeted and played to go into a certain state that has a target for you to get entangled with. And I've noticed that there's a lot going on with people's feet and underneath the feet. And I've offered in the images relative to the pure source mechanics. I might just show it quick, right? In update part 3, I offered about these and the 3 source choices and that. The green is pure source, the red is the creation of the invaders from other universes, like the orange are other universes, and the scumbags there that are, from my perspective and all that we've invested in and discovered, is that the invasion of our universe started at the origin point. We've never had pure source, right? So it's all been corrupted, and this red is the overlay that they've created. And a great deal is a byproduct, creation, or product in a lower hierarchy sort of state. And I just like using the triangle just to use what they've given against us to be a teaching to discern, right? But one aspect of that, especially the ET sort of stuff, and a lot of practitioners, teachers, concepts that are out there, that have been out there potentially for a long time, that actually a byproduct of that to set us up for failure for all this big apparatus to roll out that seems to have no hindrance, right? One of the things is the grid sort of stuff. And I'm very discerning of doing grid work and all that. I've been in part of it and I do it, and I was thinking of connecting to Earth over the last weekend and stuff. That was part of the reason why I missed doing my video and just brewing myself for that. But one aspect out there that I've felt is that there's a paranoia grid, alright? So if you're in like a paranoid state, it might be relative to what I perceive. Maybe it's been there for a while, or it's a new thing. I think it's actually a new thing, right? Because we're cleared a lot and then they reanimate and do new stuff, right? So what can happen is if you go into a fear, paranoid state, you might have a false grid inserted under your feet to be between you and the pure source aligned Earth, alright? And I feel a lot when I deal with people that they've got like chips under their feet, like in their energy field under their feet and stuff. And one other thing I felt is in the actual inside of the right calf, there's like I've talked about the left shin and stuff outside there, but I felt like this pretty consistent variable that might be in people that's inside there. You know, there's two calf muscles and on the inside calf going down the leg and stuff. So I deal with people quite often. Some people come through quite regularly, and I deal with people around me that this sort of stuff goes on. So just recognize your emotional state, right? And if it is like the fear-based alignment, there's that emotional like spiral sort of stuff that you can look at. I might put it next to me, but just do a Google search for emotional spiral, and there's basically our emotion state. There's two emotions, right? There's fear and love, and everything else is a byproduct of that. Like greed is an aspect of fear because you're insecure because you need materialism to prop you up and all that sort of stuff. Or there's like joy and all those sort of things. So very nourishing energy, emotional states to be in and that. So ideally what I'm giving you is just data points with these sort of things that you can get aha moments to self-realize that you can break it apart yourself and all that. But the reason why I also just show you these things, right, is that I had to really go quite deep on myself and what I'm doing and all that. And I'm a bit of an outlier. I'm out. Not that it's a race or anything. I know informationally it's a risk to be so defined with all these mechanics, alright? But I also feel for me there's no other way. Like I'd rather be defined so you can discern me and take it on board and employ it or not, dismiss it and all that. Or maybe in 20 or 30 years it's like, oh, he was right back then and I've lost 30 years. And I'm aiming for that time, like Bill Cooper and that. And I've been going through a lot of those OGs from 20, 30 years ago have had the courage to speak their truth and what they probably went through and that and how tough their journey was, but being aligned to the truth and how courageous that is in this world and all that, right? Because one thing I just realized is the staggering level of lying going on and deceit and misguided acts and that. And I think since February this year we're all being a bit hugely let down, and a lot of people put a lot of faith, right, hope and energy into believing that structures out there and beings that are in the show business for ugly people, politics and all that, they actually want our best. But as I offered back in September 2024, relative to the contrarian view, and I'll just put this down because it all relates to all this, right? Because the big apparatus is rolling on, so much is aligned to that, right? And you and us, we might be the outliers, the few at this time that are actually truly against it. But I've also offered how vast we are and all this shit is needed, and what is our how superior we are. And what is our superiority in that? And that's where I've sort of offered the spiritual no man's land, the awareness journey and all those sort of things, right? So I'll just put this down. So I'm actually processing the possibility of doing an influence release or something like that with all the lie pants on fire stuff going on and just how crazy it is, and you know how polarized and whiplashed people are from being exhausted, and who to trust and who to give their power away and who to vote for, like agreeing to vote is agreeing to be ruled sort of thing. And I think one of the consistent variables is by design it's sort of set up for us to be constantly disappointed, right? So we have to appreciate that and recognize those sort of vested interests and things. So I think unfortunately what's going on in society, and I've got the perfect video to sort of offer, and I'm not going to do it here, I'll do it at some other point. It's like the indifference of people. And you know, you might go through a lot, care about people and stuff, you might do healing and come out the other side and be like aim to be a beacon for the potential of people, but they don't even see it or whatever. And that, I think with all the uncertainty and all that that's going on, what's actually gone on is the truth of people are being shown, right? And the system just understands people of their true nature. It's not an idealist view, it's a reality view of the true nature of people. And unfortunately, and it's not to be negative, it's like a lot of people are just really greedy and they're trying to eke out their existence. And you know, there's the entrepreneur variable that is a foundation of, it seems, this society that we're in. And the entrepreneur level of greed is different to the individual level. And everyone is the center of their own universe. And the vast majority of people just want a comfortable life and be able to facilitate and provide and have children to facilitate their best experience. So there are a lot of people are just building for that, right? And so when all this uncertainty is going on, it's a bit like what happened in 2020 with all the lockdowns and stuff. And we saw some interesting videos that were shared about like supermarkets and what people would do in them and that. And I think you can measure it and you can see it in people, the choice they make, right? There's a choice you feel, and then there's a choice for the service itself and all that sort of stuff. So it comes back to that rite of passage sort of stuff that I was offering. And it's not really about what other people do, it's about what you do, but we each individually have to navigate this world, appreciating the 3D of how it is, but also the multi-D. And I know in me, like, appreciating that relationship of the multi-D, the soul level, and the 3D, it is the superior state to be. And I feel it will be the edge that, say for me, it will be the thing that gets me over the line where other people might fall apart. And my age, like, I've just sort of turned 50 in February and stuff. It's pretty crazy, right? But I know a lot, say guys, that they don't heal and stuff, their bodies start breaking down in the mid-40s and all that sort of stuff. And so, like, I actually had really awesome experience with a really good mate over the weekend. And I've talked about my journey of what I went through, and I had this really good mate that actually flew from London with his 1-year-old and 3-year-old in 2010 and to Adelaide, my city where I'm in now, and then flew over to Sydney and stayed with friends. And then he actually came and stayed with me and saw what I was going through and that. And he actually lent the money for me to get back to from Sydney to Adelaide and that. And then he actually lent me a lot of money to get into trading because I showed him what I'd learnt and that. And he trusted me and believed in me. And, you know, I was primed for a lot, and I've talked about that. And could have been in a very, very interesting spot, but that's where I've just learnt all this stuff, and I wasn't ready for it, right? So what I try and do is translate all that of what I learnt to impart to you, to appreciate the multi-D and the influences and the entities and all that sort of stuff. And it was really good because I had a situation where I had sort of my place to myself and that. And I've done a lot of cutting. It's ideally there's a bit more better light in that. So I got into gardening and cutting stuff up and getting wood and that. And I actually had a couple of really good fires over the weekend. Like, I actually had fires instead of doing videos or doing grid work or whatever and going to earth and crystal work. Like, I've got awesome crystals that I source and brew with them and that. And it's a big physical effort for me to do and that. And I just pulled back. Like, I didn't push the pedal to the metal, and I pulled back. And I don't catch up with a lot of people. I'm pretty dedicated to what I do, and I'm not that, I'm sensitive and vulnerable sort of stuff. I'm sensitive and epic, and I can pick stuff up and all this. And I did some healing, like chiropractic work and that, and it's just, I haven't needed it for a while, but I was just proactive and had got a really big shift from that. And then I caught up with him after, and I was just picking up so much stuff, and I was looking to catch up with him earlier this week and that. And before that happened, I was doing the fires and stuff like that, and I just sent him, I said, look, I've got this situation, why don't you come over here healing and stuff, and let me do my thing. And it's interesting because I've really, part of this weekend of me stepping back was all integrating me and where I sit and what I do and how I do it and all that. And I've had a lot of variables, and I did a lot of like gardening and stuff and cleaning and just those simple getting my foundation sorted sort of thing and integrating. And part of what I want to share is how I've sort of subtly evolved to doing what I'm doing and all that in my healing modality. So this is like an update and just a marker point sort of thing. But I sort of all put it together, and I just said, look mate, like what usually happens now is when I get into my thing, people just conk out. So I set him up lying down and all that. It was just really interesting how it played out. And I did a really good job, and it was like, for me it was like, where I'm at now, I showed him all my images and all that sort of stuff that I show you guys and stuff, and I just like, I go like this, and I've like, you know, I've got hundreds of images and all this, and he was just like, what are you going to do with it? And I think the time is to do another thing as well, which I'm brewing as well, but it was a fascinating completion for me in many respects, because he came and helped me when I was like in a lot of trouble, right? And didn't even know it. And or did, but you can just get into these scenarios and you just try and eke out an existence. You sort of don't know who your friends are, and yeah, I didn't have a lot of support and all this sort of stuff. I was in a foreign city in a really abusive situation, in a lot of trouble and stuff, and he just set me right back then. He was like, look mate, like, I'm sure she's cool and stuff like that, but I don't fucking like this shit going on to my mate, right? I was like, holy fuck. And then he lent me the money, and then to get into the trading, really committed, and I was just not ready for what was going to come at me, because I had a potential. I've got this really cool clip that I haven't put on Facebook and that, but it's like this chick, she's trading Bitcoin in 2010, and she's got like 50,000 Bitcoin, and it's got a marker under it. It's worth $3.4 billion now. And one of the aspects that I always had was not the attachment to the money. Because like a lot of people, they can get greedy, they can get like Gollum with the ring and stuff. And I've never had that attachment to money. And I was, the TV series Travelers, if you watch that, there's the guy that, I think they're archivists and they know all the future, so they use betting to get a lot of cash to fund all the missions, and I just felt like I was one of the rare people that could actually do that. And I realized like we are perceived through time and all that, and so that can ripple back, and the threats, and when we're not ready in that. So it's the level of war that we're in that we don't even know, with all this stuff going on. So it was a really awesome weekend for me to be able to do that with my mate, and had a massive shift, and I would love to get into it, but it's personal and stuff. But again, like, just say, even sitting here and realizing what happened, it was like a completion of a cycle of 18 years. Like he bailed me out, and I did this for him that I know it's going to be massive. And all that 18 years of discovery, and I just said, look, like, it's taken me 18 years to get solid over all this, and I had to freaking do it myself, like heal source itself and guard the planet and work out all these concepts and all that. But it was like we're sort of 50 and we've taken all this time to get there, but it's like, for me, it was like investing in understanding all this, the healing and the nutrition and all those sort of things. It's like really set up for a good life, despite how crazy it's going to be, because I feel like all of this, despite how it's been, it's going to be like, for me, like what I do, it's a bit like, if you build it, they will come, like the Kevin Costner movie Field of Dreams. And so that's where I've had to lead to sort of build all this, to be here and to be able to offer it and that. And so like the fire I had a couple of really good fires, like just sitting by the fire, which is such a rare thing to be able to play with the elements, like actually build a fire to work out how to do it, and just sit there for hours and enjoying the heat and just soaking up that energy before I did it, and really just really fortifying myself in what I do. And what I realized is, I'll just show you the couple of the images and I'll speak about it at the end, right? So this is a spiritual no man's land concept that I've said, that basically 3D 5 cents, and then it's above that to about 11 to 15D, and then getting beyond 22D is sort of pretty safe for us, right? So that's the spiritual no man's land concept, right? And then I've got the awareness journey, which I've shared many times about, you know, we're set up for failure, the unknown is vast, there's predators out there that are very organized and aware, and they're being set up to be superior than us, and for a long time, right, going back past lives and that. But ideally, like, in spite of that advantage they've got, we are superior, so all of this stuff wouldn't be needed unless we were superior. So what is that? And that's the mechanics I've sort of worked out, right? And I'll just show you a couple images relative to the energy field mechanics one that I shared in my last release, right? Relative to this. So this one that might be a bit hard to see, that's the spiritual no man's land journey sort of thing, and the awareness journey through the spiritual no man's land. And this is how those influences can translate to our body, multidimensional aspect, energy field and stuff. And I highly recommend going and watching that. It was one of the biggest releases, and there's a clip of a lady that I know challenged a lot. Probably I pushed the limit a bit, but it was important to share her and the biofield concept of how 80% of our immune system is in our energy field, right? So imagine how much we're set up for failure. But in that release, I just offered how the energy field mechanics play out, and how our limit, you know, that pink is like the limit of our belief sort of thing that people have, rather than the violations going on, right? It's like the range that most people accept, and the influences are going on beyond that range. So people are so vulnerable, and therefore most people are influenced and they don't know it, and they're not willing to contemplate this stuff, right? And then that release was about how you navigate in this world, right? In spite of that, okay? So I'm just going to show you the next one. And again, that's the awareness journey, and how that all translates to the influences going on, right? You know, our crown can get hacked, the life force can get harvested, the ability to defend our field is compromised relative to the volume of life force and all that. Connection to source and all that. And if you imagine under our feet sort of stuff going on, disconnecting from Earth and a fake Earth sort of stuff, right? This is one thing that I haven't said. I was thinking about this the other day. Like, I've done about 40 or 50 Earth pranics. And some of them it's like, Earth itself was haunted. It's like, how the fuck do you haunt a planet? And that's some of the stuff that's gone on at a big scale, right? And then that percolates through to us. And if we're grinded down and we don't accept this, and how much influence is going on, right? Plus there was a big rollout of entities around end of February as well, like early March, and people getting into that paranoid state. All this stuff is going on. So yes, other people might be messed up, but are you clear, right, of all this stuff, right? So I'm just going to move on. So this is one of the spiritual no man's land. I did a whole video, I think it might be our intuitive potential part 4 or something like that. I can't remember, it was a while ago since I've done these, and I only limit it to 22D and stuff. So I haven't shared these ones for a while. These are pretty old, but it's just a bit of a metaphor of my positioning of things, right, with all this. And what I said in the last video, and I might have said before that, was I'm really going to anchor in the psychic surgeon now, because I feel I've really got to bring my A game. Not that I haven't, but just really, it's more like going to be in an operating theatre and doing triage on people if they're bleeding out with this world, right? And because I love chatting to people, I love talking to them and hanging out. And the session sort of structure for me is like, if you come through, then I know you're committed to allowing me to go 100% and not hold back. Because in this world, we sort of, you know, if you're dealing with people at a dinner and all that sort of stuff, it's like you've got to discern whether this person's into this and all that sort of stuff, right? The healing for me is sessions is the outlet for me to go 100%, right? And I might joke or whatever and all that, but my foundation is like GSF, right? I'm ready to go. And so it's not like I throttle myself back or anything like that. People don't know whether to be this or that. I'm just me, and I'm just going to be me, and I'm going to be simple and all that. But I'm going to assume all that stuff in the spiritual no man's land and awareness journey sort of stuff, and translating to your energy field and biofield that I offered in Energy Field Part 1 is potentially at play. And there's also a lot of stuff out there that's stalking, that might be hidden, and it's waiting for sort of an engagement in a tentative state, like not a complete healing state. And then you might get into conversation with people, and then it might, after 10 or 15 minutes, the stuff that's stalking, you might hit a concept that has like an energy overlay relative to a past experience, or a concept that might actually, you know, the politics, there's energy behind it sort of thing. Not saying politics, but I'm just using that as an example. But what tends to happen is, and it's no offense to anything or anyone, that like actually engaging in a healing state isn't something that most people want to do. They actually want to just relax and have a chat and all this sort of stuff. And I feel that, and this is for you guys out there to appreciate, that this stuff might have gone on to you as well, is that there's this desire to disarm people, right? To let their guard down and get people to relax and have a social interaction and stuff. And what I found in the conversations, because you imagine like someone might be really, you know, hammered and influenced and gone through a lot, and they're seeking help out. And that can potentially be the most demanding scenario that we might have, right? And so what I've appreciated is that there's sort of a no man's land in that interaction before the healing gets in, and a lot of stuff can come through and just go at me, right? So I've allowed it, and all the mechanics I've worked out, like violation is our asset sort of thing, is all about dealing with all that stuff and that. But what I've appreciated is that over the years is all that is linked up to all the structure, right? What I'm showing is this is basically I'm going to hold that space to help bring people through, okay? And this sort of psychic surgeon engagement is, I feel, the best state from my end to hold to get you as an individual, if you come through, out the other side, right? Because it's worked. I've had some amazing people that have gone through shit, and I've actually been really worried about them, but I have this responsibility that I can actually get entangled or involved. I know it. And even if people are disappointed and then they think that I'm the issue and all that, and then they project on me, I know they're close to breaking through. There's all this rite of passage sort of shit that goes on that like will defeat the healer, and they don't actually want to be clear of their shit, right? And the other thing is there's a lot of people out there that aren't actually that aware, and they're portraying themselves as aware, and all the shit is running them, especially in their mind and that, and affecting them. And I've got to, me in my position, allow them to go through all of the angles that they need to go, even if it isn't seeing me as the ally or I'm the problem and all that. And that's gone on over these years and stuff like that. And it's important that people get experience, and then they, you know, maybe I'm not 100%, but I'm really freaking good, alright? And if they go through that scenario that they think that I'm the issue, alright, and then they're actually corrupted, but they don't know it, and not willing to be how am I wrong? Like my first principle of existence, how am I wrong in this moment, right? Is that, oh, maybe I'm wrong, right? Maybe Andre was right. Maybe he said something in the recording that I didn't hear, and if I listen to it now, it was there. It was like a nugget left, like a seed invested for sprouting later on. But also that experience is the key to wisdom. And you know, say if people, and it's not about me justifying me and all that sort of shit, right? It's just, this is very, goes back to spiritual no man's land, right? And the awareness journey, right? I'll go back to the awareness journey one quick, right? You never know who people are around, right? And what might be influencing them, and all the influences. If you go back to the energy field mechanics part 1, right? Where I talked about society and groups and all that, right? Family, friends, kids, like kids are, and the schools are really breeding grounds for influences, right? And it's tough. I respect all the parents and all that. But what I'm just saying is there's purpose to potentially everything, and, you know, in people's perception that maybe I'm wrong, and that's cool. Like, I have to weather it. I have to not be attached to the outcome and allow them to go through it. And ideally they'll come through the other side of realizing, oh shit, I measured myself there and I was only there and I was being influenced, but now I'm clear, I see, and all that. And I don't, it might seem like it, I take it personally, and that I don't. It's like, ooh, there's a rite of passage here, and I've got to be like Yoda and just sit and watch. You know, in Empire Strikes Back, I'm not going to use that clip here. I've used it many times, and I won't be using it in the stuff that I'm talking about, but what I've witnessed with some people that have been through some horrific stuff, and I've just had to sit there, and I know I'm at my limit of what I can do. It's like their journey, right? And they'll have to work it out. Like, if you engage me, then that's the space that I can do and work with you and invest in you. And I invest like 10 hours, you know what I mean? Like, I'm holding space and giving you the experience of being in my energy field, of being on my game and all that sort of stuff, of what the potential is in that, potentially with the longer sessions. But what I found with the pranics of late, people just conk out, right? It's like people are so exhausted and overextended that, you know, you can be armed up because your body doesn't have the energy force that you can, like the life force volume that you can afford to lose. So the body gets really armed up to defend itself, like backed in an energy corner in that. And as soon as you get into a space where it's like safe to, some of the clearing goes on, it's like people just conk out, right? And then I go into this surgeon mode, and the conking out is actually really cool, because what it does, it gets your mind out of the way. The body, like Dr. Strange in his cape, right? I know I deal with the body consciousness, like the body has a consciousness, and the body goes, hey bozo, I'm just going to conk you out and get you out of the way so your mind isn't controlling things, and then I can do the surgery in the mind that's linking all this stuff up. So I'll just go back to the other image quick, right? So this is the translation of the spiritual no man's land and awareness journey going into the energy field and stuff. And I feel what I'm just getting to is there's a lot going on in people's minds that are messing with them. You know, the paranoia stuff, but fear. And, you know, like if you haven't engaged a healer and stuff, you potentially relying on external, say a healer like myself and all that. And then there's a vulnerability, and then I'm an external variable that could be compromised, and I welcome that. You know what I mean? It's, you should be able to, I'd rather you exercise your discernment muscles and get a reference of what clear or what isn't and stuff. And I'd be a reference for that for you, but ideally I'm also a reference of actually what being clear is. So it's like if you're getting a 1 + 1 = 3, then potentially something is going on with you. And I would invite to internalize that. And then the key for me is like offering all this data is you get a realization. You can blast the thing out of by that realization, right? And heal yourself in any moment, right? Because going back to mid-2023 when I worked out what was going on and the code stealing and all the life force harvest of people that I was involved with in the past, and the setup for failure were all going in because they're all aligned to this, right? Is that the moment I got that self-realization, I got all my codes back and all my life force back and all that, and then it was on, right? So they're the sort of teachings I try and offer. So that's one of the things I always do with all the information Truth offer. It's data there that you can integrate to have a self-realization to clear yourself. But ideally, I'm just inviting being thorough. And what I'm trying to offer is that I really appreciate all this at a very high level. And how can I do my best for people? And because I've appreciated all this, and just bringing a next level to what I'm doing, and the massive disadvantage people have, I've integrated it all, especially over this weekend, like I said, with all the fire and doing the self-healing and having a big completion over my journey and getting to this level, this marker point, that in order to do my best, I'm bringing that energy, and it's probably going to be a different experience in the session and stuff. And I used to like to talk a lot and stuff, but I feel like I just really need to get into it. And if you book a session and stuff, I would advise, like, we just have an interaction front up. I always appreciate all the data, and I love people and their journey and what's going on, and like each experience I can feel all the overlay and the imprint of it. But I'm doing my audit in the pranics now that takes about 30-40 minutes at the start, and then after that I'll get into all the different areas of the body I do. And when I do the audit on myself in my pranics, it's really amazing, because the difference between not doing that and doing that, I can feel like all the stuff it reaches versus what it doesn't. And so there might be a lot of stuff you want to talk about, but I would offer at the end of the session, especially if you're doing the declaration, the bigger infinite basic or infinite full or conscious Tetris, look to just get to the other side and we'll have the chat there, right? Because whatever matters at the start probably won't matter after I do what I do and clear all the gunk out and all the data points and all the influences and stuff, right? So, because what I was saying is just all that stuff going on, like the mind might be in the way and the body just goes, hey bozo, get out my way, like let Andre do his shit and it'll conk you out, and you'll have like this really nourishing sleep, a bit like being under anesthetic, right, while I do psychic surgery. Okay, I'm not saying this will happen each individual that comes through, but it's most people out there, they're pretty depleted and all that sort of stuff, and a lot of this stuff's going on. So it might be a different experience if you have a session, and you've had sessions with me in the past, right? And then when you disarm and you go to sleep, because you probably haven't been sleeping, if you're really depleted, you don't get sleep, because going into the transition from awake to sleep, you need the energy in the body. And if you don't have that resource in the body, you're not getting good sleep and all that. And what I said about the left, or the feet and the right calf, from an energy perspective, if you're really like in the afternoon and you feel like you need a nap and you're just in your peak awareness era time and you're really just not productive at all, there's all this energy going on in people I know, and it's like that fatigue when you feel like you got nothing and you don't want to do anything and stuff. It's actually an energy in you that's keeping you running at a very less than optimal state, right, in your peak awareness era. So, and then you might blame, I'm not getting sleep and all that. Well, it's more likely the energy in you that's causing your lack of sleep. And I know, like this mate, all of this stuff was going on, and yeah, I could use him as a metaphor, but I'm not. It's not really the space to. You might be just playing catch up in life, like you don't get cleaning done and all this sort of shit, and you realize this ain't me, right? What's going on? And I would advise that you probably got some energy in you that's causing all that, right? So I hope that's a bit clear. This is like meant to be a bit of a marker point, right? And I've got some other stuff to say. Okay. There's also, if you've gone through Energy Field Mechanics Part 1, I included Sabrina Wallace clip, like a really decent clip, right? And obviously there's a lot in this world relative to technology and all that sort of stuff going on. I feel like we're coming to the Battlestar Galactica moment with all the robots, right? And the entrepreneurs are really brewing with that. And I would like to do a money sort of theme release on all that and offer a lot of clips, but there's a lot of the social media technology companies. There's these big companies, I think they're called FANGs, but now that AI is out, like ChatGPT and all that sort of stuff are added to that. So Amazon, Apple, Facebook, Google, they're all building big data centers and stuff like that. And now they're actually wanting to build data centers in space, right? So I may show clips of this, doing recordings on my video, on my computer and stuff that show you, but there's a website you can go to and you can actually look at all the satellites, say Starlink satellites, and I think they passed 11,000 satellites, and every 40 minutes a Starlink satellite disintegrates into Earth, right, the atmosphere, and that's with 10,000 satellites. I think Musk's Starlink is dumping 5,000 tons of aluminium into the atmosphere through the burn-ups of just these satellites, right? So, and I think they're at 11,000 at the moment. He's planning 40,000 at least. And then Amazon's wanting to do it. Bill Gates is wanting to do his own. And if you go back to that Sabrina Wallace clip, she talked about the low Earth orbit satellites, right? And there's another big thing that's going on where the FCC, I believe, is the governing body. It's non-for-profit. You don't get a vote on it, but it controls the spectrum that, like the frequency range of the EMF spectrum. If you go back to Internet Apparatus Part 2, I include a lady that had a clip in that relative to all this sort of stuff. And I believe the FCC, and I'll correct myself later, but I saw an article on Zero Hedge about how they're looking to evolve the rate of volume that, say, Starlink and all those sort of companies can use. So Starlink must have its own frequency. I saw a clip about sort of Mark Zuckerberg when he was on Rogan talking about how how Apple have a proprietary frequency that they use for, say, their wireless earphones and stuff, and only Apple can use that. So that's how they force you to pay a lot of money for their proprietary technology, and that's why Apple make such big margins on their tech. They don't allow competition, right? Whereas, say, the IBM computers, you can get them a lot cheaper and a lot more processing ability in them because they're not proprietary like that sort of thing. So what I saw is that at the moment, I think it's like they're allowed to do 250 meg per second sort of frequency ranges from all their satellites. I think there's a proposal going ahead where they can actually upgrade that to 1.3 gigahertz per second. So imagine it's going to be like potentially 7 times more powerful. And they got like 10,000 satellites just for Starlink, and they're planning 40,000, right? So they're going to go 4 times the number of satellites at 7 times the volume rate of data frequency sort of thing. So it's like 28 times the power that they've got going now. If that's accurate on the maths, I don't know. But just imagine like all the weather and all this sort of shit and stuff not adding up, and, you know, microwave sort of frequencies sort of thing, and bushfires, and how the air feels weirder and all this sort of stuff, and the sun looks different and all this sort of crap. To me, like, what's the effect of all these satellites going on and all their frequencies for so long, right? So in my perspective, they're just going to allow it to go on because they want all that, because they're going to be using all those frequencies to link up all the robots wherever they're going to be on the planet, right? And then that drowns out all the Schumann resonance, and I feel like they're brewing humanity to evolve us so we're not connected to the planet. And it's nasty to think, but it comes back to what Earth is, and it's like a body farm, right? That they're going to use us to go out into the universe sort of thing, right? And I think this is just a play that they've done elsewhere, right? Sort of thing. And so one of the other things I want to offer, and this will probably be the last thing because this is a bit longer than what I wanted to offer in this video, but I'm massively discerning on the UFO variable. And it's quite ironic that Trump wants to release stuff now to distract us from the focus of the rollout of the new L order. And there was a video released in 2015 called Mirage Man, and it was discerning all this. And the guy, again, I want to do in the lying, and maybe I'll out the UFO sort of community and all that. But I think it's just, I'm not saying there isn't a variable out there that's interesting, and it's, I think, like the size and scale of the universe, like I come from X-Files, like truth is out there, you know what I mean? There's the logic that there isn't stuff out there, and Contact, like I remember reading Carl Sagan's book Contact and all that, and the movie, if we are the only ones out there, then it's an awful waste of space sort of thing, right? But also like the incarnation war, going through Asha sort of stuff, it's like, say, the Billy Meyer stuff, and I've gone through thorough, like, you can't believe on all this stuff, right? The Pleiadians and all that. Like, the incarnation war on the species out there has been more successful than here, right? The incarnation war is going on, so the battle is the soul in the body, right? And all the leaders and all that. It's a free-for-all. And I've got a lot of all this stuff in the sovereignty declarations, but a lot of potentially the species that are interacting are part of the invasion aspect from my perspective, if they are actually legit, right? So I'll just show you that image again relative to the source mechanics. So I've got them there, right? And I've got the other source overlay image that I could show you and stuff, but to me, inviting a higher level discernment of everything going on. Richard Allen Miller talked about counterintelligence is the emission of truth, right? And if you go and you have invested into Energy Field Part 1, the stuff that Sabrina Wallace offered, and the Internet of Bodies and all the monitoring that's going on since all the stuff injected into kids and all that, the Asperger's and what went on 2020, COVID, AI, like 19 AI, it's all putting all the technology to monitor us through our bodies and all this apparatus going on, right? And so a lot of potentially all the technology that we consider UFOs and all that, from my mind, is probably related to the Internet of Bodies that has been set up for a lot longer than what we know. I'm not doubting that there is variables out there, right? I'm not saying that there aren't, but I'm offering to raise the bar a lot higher, because channeling and all that sort of crap, it's all, in my opinion, likely to come through this. And then just going back to the awareness journey quick, right? I'll just inject this here and go back to all that stuff. But one of the big realizations I had about me, right, was all along that 18 years, I was always perceiving at this level and operating at this level, and all the people that I've dealt with haven't. But I had no reference for this, okay? So I was humble and had lack and all these sort of things, and who am I, like, how am I wrong sort of thing. And, you know, ideally we have people out there that you can go back and, like, their references, their truth and all that sort of stuff, right? And so they're successful, they have followings, and they're offering their perspectives, and other people accept them. So it's like, oh, we can acquiesce into those sort of things and all that. What I've realized, and this is dealing with Nikki sort of thing as a reference, Nikki Fatsi and the 5D Earth that she birthed in July 2013, right? And I was working with her doing a lot of missions, is that the 5D Earth is 5D, and she was only setting the defense at 7D, right? And so that was enough to be superior than all of this shit, right? To defend it. And so for me, what I've appreciated is that I actually realized, like, when I'm perceiving all the influences and stuff, I'll just go back to the other image relative to this, right? So how that spiritual no man's land and the awareness journey translate to the influences of the body, right? I realized in my mechanics, I've always had a subtle appreciation that this is going on. The more I've grown, the more I'm becoming very, like, the loudness of the effect, and because I clear myself so much, the byproduct is the stuff isn't me, so I can work out that it's going on to other people and that, right? It's just that experience is the key to wisdom. The more you do on yourself, make yourself bulletproof, to the byproduct is what isn't you. And again, like a lot of the people I'm dealing with, 95, 90, 80% of the stuff going on with them isn't them, right? So how do you clear it, all right? And all that sort of stuff, right? But this is the big realization I had over this weekend, sort of in that journey of that completion that I had, is that, holy F, I've been perceiving this level all along. I just didn't know it, right? But all these other scumbags and charlatans and all that, they've never been able to perceive at that level, right? But they're faking it, okay? And they're very convincing and charismatic and all that sort of stuff. So I'm just inviting, don't underestimate how unaware so many people are that they can't do this, right? And so it's not about challenging people and all that sort of stuff, but I remember like DJing, right? Like I realized in my technique that I was missing stuff because I didn't have a particular mixer with the volume sort of setting in that. So I could have been better, but my track listing, who I was, how people liked me and that, I was a threat. And so most of the people, DJs or party people that would organize parties, they didn't want to get people that were a threat to them because they wanted to be seen as number one, right? So it's all this sort of bullshit, but it's all the people aligned to the negative force that are out there in the community as well, right? Then they're going to align to say the UFOs and all this sort of shit because they're counterintelligence. They're leading us astray from the internet of bodies and all that stuff going on when they've been in alignment with it all along, right? To derail people and set us up for the New World Order, right? So it was like, holy crap. This is why I have to really anchor me, because I've got the mechanics that are able to clear all their gunk out, and the violation is the asset. And I've had a session overnight where the person just laughs a lot because they're seeing all the consequences of all these frackers that are going on when I do my audit and stuff, right? But I sort of realized a lot of the strategies subtly going on and stuff, and so I've integrated all them to be able to say get you as an individual through all this and all that, right? But I realized like they're all faking it, right? So just as this reference, like if you go and listen to other people and just you'll know, right? You'll be able to sense it. There's hollowness when you lean into their information or where they get it, and I could always tell where people get the source of their data and all that, and it's all very regurgitating the same stuff from other people, but I saw this clip of David Irving talking about like the Hitler sort of stuff, and it's really interesting because it was like all these academics, they just refer to each other's crap, right, and repeat it so you believe it because they're saying all the same stuff, right? Okay. So, but the UFO stuff, just be careful because it might be loaded with stuff to derail you as well and target you. Going back to 2016, I talked about this guy that was into Curry Good stuff when I was trying to activate someone, and it went at me. It was dormant and it just went at me in a gathering, right? So don't be fearful of this, just explore it, and violation is your asset and all that sort of stuff, right? But yeah, I just wanted to offer a few things together, and I think that needs to be said about the UFO off-world community. Like, it's like a second layer of the narrative, right? And I'll just show you a narrative image quick. This is the second one of the different layers and stuff. And say, like, the first layer is like the mainstream sort of stuff. The second layer is like conspiracies and alternate sort of stuff. And maybe there's a line, healing is above that, right? But maybe they accept that, but they're not willing to heal, so they're vulnerable and they can get compromised and all that sort of stuff, so they believe in all this because it's a vested interest sort of thing. And I would just offer that it needs to be discerned at a high level now, right? Because how is it working in partnership with it, distracting the community from the real chess moves going on, like the new the new L world order. And what I realized about the Trumps and the tariffs was to get everyone to bend the knee to him, to be in fear of his backlash that would undermine their society, so they're all accommodating him with his plans and his moves, because he's using the military as like a baseball bat at the moment, and not governed by truth at all. And that's where the big disappointment is, and I think a lot of people are shocked, and other people will say it was there, but I think the level of mastery going on, there's something really big, masterful behind it, running things. and that's like some system. It reminds me of the movie Oblivion and the big thing that's behind that, or third and fourth season of Westworld, where there's the big AI sort of stuff, and the masterful nature of just hitting people where they, you know, their interests are and stuff, and then luring people in and then setting us all up for failure. And that, I think it's just been raised to a whole new level, and it's not covert anymore, it's overt in our face. And that shock of it being in our face, people then they retreat back into the materialism and service to self, because their fear of the uncertainty going on and all that, right? So just see everything going on and stay true to your truth and stay true to your development, and use everything as a motivator and an instrument to take you to a whole next level. And I'll just leave it here. I don't want it to be too long. It's already going to be quite long. This will be update part 4. I'm not sure what it's going to be saying, but marker point sort of thing. It's meant to be just a bit of an update and a reference of me and stuff, of where I'm sitting now. Ideally inspire you to go to a few things and take on board stuff that maybe it can help you, and just realize a few things going on. And players out there, one thing about Elon Musk as well, I forgot to say this, I realized he's using the Richard Branson playbook, because Richard Branson was a very good self-promoter, and he would come on every company he started, and that he would be the front face of it. And that's one of the plays that the cards that Elon Musk used. He's like the face of all the promotion and marketing of things. And, you know, like, to me, like, he acquired Twitter because a bit like Google and Facebook and Apple and all that, they acquire all this data to actually formulate the consciousness of their robots that they're planning. So I would say in all their, you know, in their terms and conditions that you have to sign off of using it, it's like, we're going to use your data to work out a consciousness that we're going to put in robots, sort of stuff, right? I feel that that is what is going on, and they're all trying to create all that, and the big thing going forward is like creating robots, right? Because a lot of corporations will probably pay $20,000 or $30,000 a robot over one hit, and then have updates for that, rather than paying like 50 or 60 or 100 grand a year for a human. And that's the level of stuff going on, and that's the opportunistic entrepreneurs will be seeking that market, sort of thing. And that's where I like I'll go back to another image. That's where the dawn of a new day, the utopia, the you will own nothing and be happy, socialism, communism sort of stuff will be aimed for, right? So yeah, I've just had a few of these things to say. I'm just going to put this down. So I just wanted to say some stuff about me to be a marker point relative to me and my evolution of all I'm offering, and my healing and all that, because it has changed, because I've integrated a lot and stuff. But also some stuff about the community and the information out there, the awareness journey and the challenges we all have, some stuff in the community, and then some stuff in the society and people's reaction to it and the emotional state, and how you can take on board and observe all this, but also formulate your own solution in it. And ideally the sovereignty and the energy hygiene and that is going to be an obvious ally to all that, right? But yeah, I missed last weekend, and I had a really profound weekend and a real completion of many things, and I stepped back and just reanalyzed everything, and formulating some teachings that I'm going to do, and other teachings I need to do, and all that sort of stuff. But I just thought I'd do like a decent update. It's going to be quite long now, but at least offer something for those of you that really appreciate my perspectives and teachings and offerings, and also just, this is a bit of an outlet where I don't overlay with particular teachings. And if I was going to do a teaching that I said, I think it's going to be probably 2 as it is, it would add to the length of those sort of things, right? And this is just an outlet for me to say a few things. So the update part 4 that this will be, the update theme is just a way for me to offer a lot that I see going on, right? And unfortunately it's probably not pleasant, and there's challenges going on and stuff like that, and the structures are masterful at a whole next level. Like, I just appreciated how amazing and masterful they are of what they're rolling out, and how much we have to really raise our bar, right? And it's not playing woe is me or like how do we deal with this world and stuff. I would just invite, just anchor yourself with all this and be in partnership with the totality of yourself and embrace energy hygiene and all that, and what is the potential with that foundation, right? So we're going to have to see what happens and where we go and all that sort of stuff, but I hope you're doing well, and if I've seen you or haven't seen you for a while, it's always a privilege and an honor to be here with you and stuff, and I hope this information helps you and you get a lot from it. And I'll probably look to be releasing something over the weekend and stuff. So just remember how amazing this world is and how precious and you are in this peak awareness era that you've got, and make the most of it. All right. So thanks for being here. I hope you get a lot from this. I hope you are going well and this helps you take yourself to a whole next level, right? So keep going, keep chipping away, don't give up, and who knows what is on the other side of all of this for you. All the best. Bye for now. See you soon. Andre out.
in December, heading for the city lights. 975, we sharing each other, nearer than farther. Scent of lemon drips from your eyes. We are the people that rule the world, what's running in every boy and girl, all rejoicing in the world. Take me now,
John Lilly once put it this way: there are no limits at all to the human mind whatsoever, except those we impose on ourselves because of our beliefs. And those limits are also beliefs to be transcended. And that's a view that suggests that the possibilities of human transformation are virtually infinite. And we have no way of knowing the outer horizon of what it means to be human.
And really, to understand all this, everything, you have to go very, very deep into a study of history, consciousness, neurophysiology, everything. You have to be the supreme eclectic type of leaning, and you really have to be wanting to know who you are and what everything's about.
And the thing that you'll find when you go to sacred sites, if you're very humble about it, is that you are on a personal journey, and the sacred site will respond to you in a way that is appropriate only to you. The information is always what you are searching for. And it's the intent you give that energy that defines whether it is used for right action or not. And it is inside these sacred spaces that you will be reminded that you are a god, that you are a bright star.
So what you're trying to do is move through the course without ricocheting off walls or creating karma. You're trying to slide through things smoothly. How do you do that? It's called flowing. There's a technique that you can do that will allow you to touch some part of your inner being that has more knowledge than your conscious state does.